Oh my gosh, that's on camera.
We need to wave.
Yes, wait please.
We're humans.
So I just finished a long shift at work, getting ready to head out the door, and all of a sudden I get a call from Dr. Katz, a well-known and respected cardiothoracic surgeon in South Florida. He says that a patient that he operated on earlier is having troubles and he has to rush him back to the operating room. All of a sudden, he then orders a massive transfusion protocol, which requires every unit of red cells and all of its components to be replaced in order to try to save the patient's life. Unfortunately, the patient had a very specific blood type and the units were not available. Well, this didn't really happen, but it could have. And today I want to explain to you the need for units of red cells, the shortage that's experienced across the country, and what we can do for a little tweak to make sure that this doesn't happen to you or somebody that you love. So you may be wondering why I'm qualified to even talk to you about this topic. Well, there's me holding 2 units of O-positive red cells. I work in immunohematology, just a fancy term for blood bank, in a primary cardiovascular and thoracic and stroke hospital. Every day, we transfuse anywhere from 10 to 40 units of O-positive cells, or any cells for that matter, including cryoprecipitate, plasma, and platelets. Those are just different components that come from units of red cells. Per the CDC, there's 17.2 million units of red cells donated every year, but they're transfused every year, but only 13 million units that are actually donated by donors. This leaves us at about a 4 million unit deficit. The Omega states, the International Journal of Management Services, that these 13 million units is a great place to start, but clearly with that 4 million unit deficit, we definitely need more red cells donated. About 45% of the population, according to the American Red Cross, has O blood type. And that is great for us because that means if someone gets into an accident or needs red cells, 45% of the chance you're in good hands. There's even a higher percentage of O-type blood cells in African Americans at 51% and Hispanics in 57%. You may even be a more unique puzzle piece and have AB negative blood, which is only 1% of the population per the blood connection. So if you get in an accident and you have AB negative blood donors may be your only chance to get well. There are also some people that have antibodies, basically just fancy red cells that need very specific donations. So if you have antibodies that are acquired, meaning you got them through pregnancy or maybe your previous transfusion, or you were just born with them, you need blood types that are exactly specific, not just a type, but also antibody specific for that person. So with the donation need being obvious, you may be wondering, well, what can we do about this shortage? Well, as of right now, there is a guideline from the FDA regulations that states that a man that has had sex with another man in the past 12 months is unable to donate blood, 12 months from the last encounter. This seems pretty out of date, and the American Journal of Nursing says that this came about in 1970 when HIV came around and we really knew nothing about it. People were scared to deal with anything with blood. They knew nothing about it and were very strict on the transfusion guidelines. Dr. Donatel, a professor and PhD at Oregon State University, also says that this is out of play and this is old news because there is a medication called PrEP, or pre-exposure prophylaxis, which actually decreases the risk of transmission for gay men to up to 90% reduced risk for people that have HIV. Also with antigen testing that's more up to date, people who have been exposed to HIV typically show antibodies, 97% of them, according to HIV.gov, will show those antibodies being positive 3 to 12 weeks from exposure. So that gives time for people who have been exposed to get tested before that gets into the blood donation. Cedars-Sinai also states that one blood donation can save up to 3 lives. So the blood donations obviously have a huge impact. You may be wondering what impact, though, can be made if gay men are permitted to donate. So as you can see here, there's about 4 million men that identify as gay or bisexual. And if these men who are HIV negative are able to donate, that would add millions of donations to the donor pool. The 2011 study at the William Institute of UCLA School of Law does say that the 4 million that do identify would be a huge impact, again, because they would be able to donate whole blood. The CDC also says that the risk of getting HIV from a blood donation is 1 in 1.5 million. But that was in 2008, before we had more of the HIV testing and knew more about HIV. We also now know that undetectable means untransmittable, and that's a big deal that also can allow people to donate. So the FDA regulation has been in place since 1970. That seems like a long time, and you may be wondering, well, what can we even do about that? Well, there's a few things that you can do. For starters, every time you see that big red bus, you can stop in and donate as often as possible. That's every 56 days for a regular donor, or every 112 days for what's called a power red donation, which is a double red cell donation. You can also sign up for petitions. Here's one, for example, that I've signed up for at change.org. This was one of the most popular ones that came about after the Pulse Massacre nightclub shooting, where many people wanted to donate blood, and the line was down the street and around the corner from the One Blood Donation Center, but unfortunately, gay men were turned away. You can also educate those around you about how we know so much more about HIV now, and how the transmission of getting HIV from a blood donation is very minimal, and how that donation can really help to save a lot of lives. So with all that you've learned today, including the need for blood donation, as well as why it's important, the shortage that's experienced, and the small tweak that can be made, we can have a huge impact on the donor pool and make sure that we aren't coming up with these shortages. Also, donating blood per the Benefits Risk Management and Services is actually good for your health. It can reduce your risk of cancer and also can reduce the risk of damage to your pancreas and liver. So when you're out on the streets, you see the big red bus, make sure that you stop in and donate, and just think about the impact that you're making. Then also think about if gay men were allowed to donate, how that could be multiplied tenfold. And truly that shortage for someone who's going into the operating room and may have a special type of blood won't happen again, and they'll have better chance of survival. Thank you. Okay, any questions? Yes?
So what happens if the wrong blood types mix?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So if someone goes into the emergency room, let's say they were in a car accident and they don't know their blood type, they actually transfuse them with O negative blood. So there's no choice. There's no likelihood that there will be an error. But if some way there is a mix of incorrect blood type, it's bad. Typically the patient dies pretty quickly. So in blood bank, we have a lot of things that we do to make sure that the wrong person doesn't get the wrong blood type, because that's a big deal. Yeah. Anybody else?
How much blood can a person lose before they succumb?
Yeah, so the average person has anywhere from 8 to 10 pints of blood in them. Typically, when they order a massive transfusion protocol, it's 8 units of whole red cells. Massive.
In like the first phase.
Yeah, first phase. So they do 8.
Or 6.
But at that point, they're just trying to get enough blood into them to keep their brain alive until they can find the bleed and stop it.